Hello, everyone. This is Dorie Clark, and we are here with a special live stream interview with Mo Bunnell. He is the author of the amazing new book. Here we go, Give to Grow. Mo, it's so good to have you.
I'm so excited. Well, I'm a big fan of you and reinventing you, the long game, stand out. Like all of our content is so beautifully aligned. This is going to be next level.
I mean, I think this is going to be a great conversation. And for all of you tuning in live, please feel free to type into the chat box and let us know where you're calling in from, so to speak. Nikolai is already here from Norway. We have Tiffany from Michigan. We've got Jim joining us from Minnesota. We're so glad you're here. Please also feel free to type in questions at any time for me or for Mo. So Mo, I just want to dive right in. So the subtitle of your book, it's Invest in Relationships to Build Your Business and Your Career. Now, I think most people would probably say, like, yes, this seems like a good idea. This seems reasonable. But you have written an entire book about this. So talk to me a little bit about your thinking. What is it that people, like, if everyone sort of thinks it's a good idea in general, what is it that they're missing? Why are we falling short? Why do we not already operationalize the things that we should be doing?
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. Like there's a common saw that we hear all the time. All of us talk about it. And it's just, I passionately disagree with it. And the idea is it's not what you know, but pregnant
Who
pause,
you know?
who you know. Right. Exactly. And the idea is like it's either or. And I think in our world, and I think with your great content about, personal branding and the long game networking, meeting the right new people, the idea is like it's either or. And it's just not true anymore. You've got to have a high expertise or people aren't paying attention with you. But if you only have that, you're sort of a jerk or you're like nobody can find you or whatever. But if we can pair high expertise with also relationship skills to find the right new people, to invest in their success, to have mutually beneficial relationships and do it consistently where we're top of mind, it's what you know and who you know and how well you know them. That is an unstoppable pairing. But most people aren't taught the networking or the relationship skills side.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Thank you. We're here with Mo Bunnell, who's the author of the new book, Give to Grow. We have Terry, who joined us from Los Angeles. We have Carolyn, who is in Bethesda. So glad to have all of you. And please, dive on in. Feel free to ask questions. But in the meantime, Mo, I have lots of questions for you here. So one of the things that you talk about in your book is about the flywheel of success. And I'm always interested. Everyone loves a good flywheel, right? Like how can we think about things that just the more you keep doing it, the easier they get? That sounds like a very winning premise to me. So can you explain what you mean by a flywheel of success? What does that look like? And how can we harness that?
That's great, Dorie. Like, hey, if we don't have a flywheel conversation or a 2x2 matrix in this, like it's not successful, right? We got to have those. So I think with the idea of investing in relationships, I think what most people don't understand is there's an exponential growth curve to the value that we get out of it and they get out of it. It's mutually beneficial, but it requires consistently investing over time. Sort of like dollar cost averaging in the stock market, like investing a specific amount over time pays off exponentially, not linearly. But what's interesting is a network effect exponential growth curve stacks on top of all these individual relationships, because unlike stocks, people talk to each other. So the more we're helpful to people, the more we're doing that consistently over time, the more we get an exponential growth curve in a singular relationship. But the idea of a network effect sits on top of that, meaning that when we help Jane, she tells Philippe how great we are, and it starts to compound over time. The key is making we can dive as deep as you want into this, but making consistent investments in others' success in a very specific way is what unlocks sort of a double exponential growth curve of impact on the world and on us.
Yeah, I really love that. We want to say hello to Doug from Pittsburgh. We have Daniel joining us from Denver. We've got Lorianne in Buffalo, and Sheb is joining us. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you here. I'm Dorie Clark. I'm interviewing Mo Bunnell. He is the author of Give to Grow, which is a great book about how investing in relationships can help your business and your career. And we're diving into this. I'm curious, Mo, can you give some examples to us for people? Because, I wrote a book, sort of spiritually akin to yours called The Long Game. And I think relationships are, oh, we're gonna have the matching. Hey, I love it. Thank
That's
you. That's
right.
great.
Well, I'm a fan.
So, I think that we talk about a lot of similar themes in terms of
Yep.
like, for relationship building in particular, it's about essentially deferring gratification, right? Don't
Yep.
jump on people too early for things, which can be very hard for people to
Yep.
resist in some ways. So, can you talk a little bit about sort of what playing the long game looks like in terms
Yep.
of relationships? Like, how have you done this, or how does one resist the urge the minute you meet someone famous slash useful or whatever to grab and smother immediately?
Yeah, you got it. Well, one of the key elements of the book is two chapters that are back to back. The first one of these, it's in the middle of the book, but the first of these two is called Fall in Love with Their Problem. And the second one is called Give Them the Experience of Working with You. These two together are a powerful pair. They really pack a punch. Fall in love with their problem means instead of me walking into a new relationship thinking, what can I get out of this? In other words, falling in love with my expertise or my products or whatever I've got to offer, we want to flip that. We want to fall in love with their problem. That means asking thought-provoking questions, getting them to talk about their priorities in their words. At the moment that we can truly understand that, that's where we can shift to the second thing, which is offering something of helpfulness. And that might be a 30-minute topical conversation on something that we can offer that helps them move something forward. It might be a half-day workshop if there's something they can hire us for, or we want to do something to roll up our sleeves and not start with what we can get, but start with how we can help, where we can showcase our expertise, start some momentum in the direction of the yes that we want to get later on, but every single time start with generosity and start with something where they're going to be able to see our expertise in a way that helps them move their goals forward. Dorie, is that where you wanted to go with that one?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. Mo Bunnell, he's the author of Give to Grow. And we have Sarah joining us from Michigan. We've got a LinkedIn friend from New Jersey. We've got Abdul Rahman, who has just joined us from Yemen, and Vanadio is from Angola. We have a terrific international crew here. If you're
Love it.
enjoying the conversation, hit like, hit share, so others can benefit from the conversation as well. Now, Mo, something that I've seen, and I think, a lot of our users here, some are tuning in from YouTube, some are tuning in from LinkedIn, but a lot of times we've probably all experienced something like this, where we get a message, a connection request from somebody that we don't really know that well. And, I'm trying to think of the right terminology for it, but it's almost like a false give, like, oh, let's have a, let's have a nice chat, just, and then it becomes a sales pitch,
Yeah.
or they give you a thing, but it's really so it can trigger some kind of tricky reciprocity. Like, talk to me about that. How can we guard against that? Like, how can we make sure that we are, both in our giving and receiving, really doing this in an authentic way rather than the sort of sneaky way that so many
Yeah.
people try?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just get so many outreaches to me like that. And you can smell it. You can just tell from a mile away when somebody's being disingenuous. So the number one thing we want to do when we're activating everything in Give to Grow is to do it from a genuine place of helpfulness. Meaning, in the literature, what Adam Grant found is when he stratified givers, matchers, and takers, and I love this study that he did, is he found that a true gift has no strings attached. As soon as somebody can smell this is a sales pitch, or later on there were some strings attached to the gift, everything not only doesn't work, it actually is a negative. It backfires. So what we want to do is we want to think of our giving more like poker than chess, meaning we want to think in bets. We want to make offers of helpfulness that truly are helpful and there's no strings attached, but we're making some bets that we're going to scale the size of our gift based on how it might play out for us. So if somebody cold calls you and they say, hey, I'm from your university, I'd love to learn from you, you've been successful, can we go golfing for 4 hours? Well, that's a lot of time to invest in that. We might want to dial that down to a 15-minute phone call. But if our boss asks for some help for 15 minutes, we might, or our boss's boss, might want to elevate that to a 4-hour investment based on the size of how it might play out for us. So if we're always making bets in the way that it might play out, and at the same time, never expecting any particular thing to pay off. That's where we're really optimizing our investments, where it's going to help the world, but it has a high likelihood of helping us as well.
That's really interesting. Thank you. That's great. So JT is joining us here from Seattle. Hey, JT. We have a friend joining us from India. Hello. We love having all of our viewers from around the world here. Now, Mo, you, in addition to being an author of Give to Grow, you run a company. It's called Bunnell Idea Group, and
Yep.
you actually work with organizations to help them with their business development. So, I mean, I'm actually curious. The principles in your book. I can imagine that probably a lot of people would say, okay, this is great, but some people are good at relationships, some people are
Mm.
not good at relationships. You actually train people in this, and I can guess that there's probably a pocket of people that feel like this is either a thing you do well naturally or you
Mm.
don't. But clearly, your business is predicated on the idea that a lot of these things are things that people really can learn. What have you seen out there about this?
Yeah, I'll answer that with science and a story. The science on this is irrefutable. Dr. Candace Erickson, who passed away at the beginning of the pandemic, and I know you've quoted him before, Dorie, is like everything he's found in the study of expertise, the study of people becoming experts, is that all complex skills are both learned and earned. So it is a massive myth for somebody to say you're just born with it when it comes to relationship skills or relationship development, business development, sales, whatever we want to call it. That's the science, and it's just irrefutable. Studied it for decades. A story. I'll actually show you something. I don't usually show people, but
Oh,
I
let's
just have it.
see.
I know I have it sitting here. We've got, so for Bunnell Idea Group, we trained over 50,000 people. We have our entire business model. Dorie, this actually came out of the event that you and I were at in January when we were together. I
Yeah.
never showed you this. Is I realized as I was trying to describe to a mastermind group that I was a little muddy in how we described our business model. The whole team of ours got together and we described on one page what's the business model, and then on the back page what are all of our goals to get us to 2030, and we broke it down by year. This is really important. Not only do we have numbers of the kind of leading indicators and lagging indicators that we want to achieve as a team, and we built this all together, but we have an actual email we got from somebody named Julie. And Julie went through our program at this point about 13 years ago. She was a senior associate at a very high performing law firm. And she came up to me before the class started and said, gosh, I just got to tell you, I might be a little disengaged. I think I'm going to take an in-house job because I didn't become a lawyer to sell. Those are exact words. And I just don't think I want to do this, but I haven't got that done yet. So I just want a little whisper to me. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Well, Julie loved the program. She realized that developing business is really just developing relationships, which is really just being helpful. 13 years later, Dorie, she writes us this email that I know it's too small but it basically says, I wanted to circle back with you because not only did that training class make me realize I can do this, but I went not only through income partner, but I'm now equity partner at this higher level firm. And by the way, I just got named co-chair of our largest practice area globally. So she went from, I can't do this and I'm actually going to leave because I don't want to realizing that this is stuff that's helpful, that you can lean into it. You can wake up in the morning wanting to help people strategically, and that she got so good at it. She's now leading the charge at this huge international prestigious law firm and now helping others go through that transformation.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Great story. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our friends tuning in from around the world. We are here with Mo Bunnell. He is the author of Give to Grow. This is Dorie Clark. And if you have questions for Mo, you want to talk business development, you want to talk relationship building, you want to talk long-term thinking, type your questions in. We'd love to hear more from you and get your thoughts and perspectives and questions for Mo. So thank you for that. Now, Mo, I feel like you are really good at walking the talk. You were mentioning, you had your graph. You're like, oh, we came up with this at the event that we were at together earlier this year. You have now invited me to multiple events that you have organized. This is something you're not doing as a revenue stream, but you seem to have a habit or hobby of creating convenings for groups of people, and we're gonna get to see each other in a few weeks for another one. why do you do that for people who, this seems like crazy, they'd never think of doing such a thing? Can you explain
Yep.
what it is you're doing and why it feels like a valuable use of time for you?
Yeah, and I can do that for sure from my perspective, but also share how others can do it too, because I
Yeah,
think it's
please.
really powerful. So I'll do my perspective, their perspective, the audience perspective. I grew up, I grew up as an only child in an alcoholic family in a town of 80 people. I'm not joking, in rural Indiana, and I and I never felt like I belonged anywhere. There was just literally no one my age. So I would run around and do things like dig holes in the backyard with my dog to like keep myself entertained. Then and this is like sort of crazy to think about, I didn't mature till like 3 years after anybody else did my age. So I still have my freshman basketball roster, Dorie, where Andy, our best player, weighs 178 pounds. He's like 6'2". He's in ninth grade. And I weigh 89 pounds. Like I was over 45 pounds smaller than the next smallest person.
Oh
So
boy.
not only was there not anybody in my town I actually lived in, but then when I went to school, I just felt like I didn't belong. Like I was this tiny little 89-pound weakling. I was like the person in the back of the comic book they're trying to sell muscle powder to or something at the beach. And so I just never felt like I belonged. So building community is really, really, really important to me. So that's part of what I've got in my mind. Oh, and then the part that is, and I'm having camera troubles, but it'll pop
That's
back up.
okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry. You keep
Wait,
talking. I'm
yeah,
still here. That's right.
you
We can
can hear
keep
me.
everybody here. Keep
Yeah,
them
yeah, yeah.
watching. We got
It'll pop.
Ernesto from Miami who joined us. We have a LinkedIn user friend from Stockholm who joined us.
Yep.
So that's great.
Yeah, and it's gonna pop back up in a second. I know what happened. So
I know.
then the part that the group can grab a hold of is if you're ever trying to grow relationships in a way that's deeply meaningful, one of the best things you can do is be the person that convenes the group at the level that you want to be at. Because when you're the person that makes the invite, everybody elevates your status because you're the air quotes, the person that knows everybody. And it's just really powerful. So I do it truly out of this altruistic, I want to build community, but I think it also happens to help me too. That's one of those sort of strategic give kind of things that we talked about before. It's one move you can make that's super, super successful.
That's great. I love that. And I'll just pop up here. Our LinkedIn friend here from Stockholm says, "Give to Grow was an inspiring read. I loved how it emphasizes the power of generosity in building lasting, meaningful connections, and the practical strategies for networking and personal growth were incredibly helpful. Thank you." Well, that is very nice. You clearly have a friend in Stockholm, Mo.
There we
That's
go.
great.
Well, I went with backup camera too because this is the low quality. I look like I'm pale camera. How do you think about that?
You're rocking it. That's great. We want to say hi to Angie, who is here from Eastern North Carolina. We're glad to have you, Angie. That's awesome. So let me ask you a question, Mo. So if somebody was listening to this and they're like, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Let's convene a community of interesting people that I want to hang out with."
Yeah.
If you are getting started and you're wanting to kind of level up your networking through doing something like this, whether it could be a gathering like a conference or something, it could be a dinner, it doesn't necessarily matter. But what's like the first step? Because I imagine if you sort of start it the wrong way, then it'll
Yeah.
never get to what you want it to be. So is it like you have to kind of get one name to do it, or like what's the strategy that you use to build an event that would be exciting for people to attend?
Yeah, I'll give everybody 3 tips, and these are counterintuitive. They're what most people don't think about. Number one, we want to think about who we actually want to meet, not who we already know. We're generally going to anchor on the people we already know. So, who are the people that we want to meet that we can help and that can also help us? Mutually beneficial. Again, every time. So we want to actually start with a list of, if not the exact names, at least a persona. I would like to meet people that do these kind of things. Thing two is we want to set up this group as an ongoing, like the the deal is, or the idea is that it will meet ongoing. We call that a value group. And it's a group of people that are trying to like help each other or solve a certain problem over a period of time. Maybe you meet twice a year, maybe 3 times on Zoom, once in person, but you want to like set it up like this isn't a one-time thing to the extent you can. The third person or the third tactic or idea, like I think you're hinting towards this, is generally speaking, you want to start with actually the hardest person to get. Who would people most likely to want to be around? Because if you can get that person first, then you have a great answer to the first question every single person asks. Who, this sounds cool. Who else is going? So to the extent you can start with the most desirable person and actually involve them in creating the content and deciding the dates that work for them, things like that, then it just makes the whole thing super easy. I think each one of those is almost backwards of what most people do, and they actually want to get those in the right order. And if they do that, they're going to be in great shape.
That's really interesting. Thank you. We're here with Mo Bunnell. This is Dorie Clark. And Mo, our friend here, is the author of Give to Grow, the new book. We want to say hi to Alicia, who's joining from Berkeley. We have Janet in the house. And we have a LinkedIn user, Mo, who has a question for you, which is, it always comes up here. How does this apply to introverts? Everybody's like, oh, okay, but Mo, we understand you like hanging around with people for an entire weekend, but not everybody does. So what does relationship building look like for someone that likes a little less stimulation?
Well, exactly. I think what's interesting about introverts is I'm an ambivert. I'm right in the middle. So right after that event that we've got, Dorie, I'm going to need like a day of not talking to people because I'm going to want to process everything. I'm going to want to write things down. I want to make some plans. I want some quiet time. So maybe an introvert wants a little less interaction, a little more quiet time. So I would generally either keep the event a little bit shorter or make it a little bit smaller. I mean, value groups can be incredibly valuable with like 4 people at them. It can be like a quiet room at a restaurant. It doesn't have to be some big 40 or 50 person thing. And then you can decide with that group, do we make it bigger? Do we not? Things like that. So I would design it. Well, let me say this, Dorie. One of the lines in the long game I just think is the coolest because it's so meta is optimize for interesting. I think of that line all the time. And I think you presented it like optimizing for interesting people you want to meet. I think you can also apply it for optimizing for events that you think are interesting, for dialogues you think are interesting, for content that you think is interesting. So I think of you all the time because I think that line's good. And I think this applies to the introvert thing. Set up the group in a way that you think's interesting and don't listen to other people's advice. It has to be this way. Do it in a way that you're excited about. Size, scale, content, length. That's what's going to be the winning move.
That's really interesting. Thank you. I love it. This is Mo Bunnell we're talking to. He is the author of Give to Grow. We want to say hi to Ellis, who just tuned in from Cambridge, UK. And Jean is here from Bethesda, Maryland. Jean, go up in the comments. Go say hi to your neighbor, Carolyn, who's also joining us from Bethesda. We're glad that you're all here. And if you have questions for Mo, type them in the chat box. And if you're enjoying the conversation, hit like and share. Mo, something that we've been talking about, I mean, there's sort of multiple steps in terms of relationship building, right? It's like first you got to meet them and get to know them in general. Next, presumably they have to like you and have favorable feelings. But if we're actually talking about this in a business development sense, they also need to understand that you're competent and that you know how to help them in a professional capacity, which is kind of a step change from like, oh, well, he's a nice guy to, oh, this person could actually help me. Let me give him a lot of money. So can you talk a little bit more about that step and how to transition into demonstrating your authority or your expertise?
I sure can. And I'll tell a story and then give a practical example for everybody. There was a time when I was with my wife, Becky, and I've been married about 32 years. And I think it was the first year or two we were married. We went out to a dinner with another couple. And Dorie, we chose a restaurant we should not have been at. Like we could not afford this place at the time. Sommelier comes up, starts talking about this big red Bordeaux and we should buy it. And it's really great for the event that we were celebrating. I can't even remember what it was. And he left and we're all looking at each other like, there's no way we're buying that Bordeaux. It sounds great, but no, we can't afford it. Well, he comes back with a taste for all 4 of us. Just a small taste. We take a taste and we bought the bottle and we liked it so much we bought a second bottle.
And you're still paying for it?
It's fine now, but at the time it was a stretch. Well, the point with that story is a, a taste of something is much more compelling than hearing about how great it is. You want to experience how great it is. So when we think about relationships, about how to create momentum where there was no momentum before, business development, relationship development, getting the yes, we want to give people a taste of the experience of working with us as fast as we can. We want to shift from hearing about how great we are to them experiencing how great we are. So a great way to do that is a simple phrase. You hear about, you fall in love with their problem, and then you say, hey, would it be helpful if we blank? And that might be started a project plan on how we would do this thing, quantified the value it might have for your organization, introduced you to somebody that's a client of ours that has done it before. What's the ending of would it be helpful if that the person starts to interact with you and see you showcase your expertise? That's what creates momentum to getting a yes, as opposed to just, hey, can I send you a proposal? Like that just doesn't work. They still haven't had the experience of working with you. And we want to transition to that.
Yeah, that's really great. I love that. And a comment that came in from a LinkedIn user, which I love, a great tip for coaching while reading Give to Grow is to focus on helping others succeed first. This is a point that Mo has been driving home. Offering value without expecting immediate returns builds trust and deepens relationships. So
Yep.
right on to that. I think that's awesome. So I'm curious, Mo. We're getting into the denouement of our conversation here, but one thing that I think comes up a lot when it comes to business development and thinking about relationships in the context of business development is you're talking about giving first. You were alluding earlier to Adam Grant and give and take and things like that. One question that always comes up, if you're being a giver, this is great. You don't want to be a sucker though, right? You don't want to be the person who somehow encounters a taker and just keeps being like, well, what else can I do for you? What else can I do for you? Because that leads down a pretty bad path. What is your rule of thumb for how to be a giver in this world, but also not to be dumb about it and get taken advantage of?
Yeah, one of the things in his study was literally this phrase. It's the people that are unsuccessful givers that can tend to get burned or burn out. And I love that alliteration. And we want to avoid that. Those folks are not successful. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to scale the size of our give to the relative prize that we might get at the end. Always no strings attached. A gift is always a gift. There's no expectation of anything in return, but we're generally going to scale that up or down based on what we could get. So if somebody's a consultant and there's a potential $10 million opportunity for them for a large program, well, they might want to give away $100,000 of free expertise, like put a team on the ground for 4 weeks. Like, let's just get this going, create momentum. If somebody's has more of a solo practitioner, they're a coach, and they've got like $20,000 that a client might be able to hire for them for, well, they might want to offer like one meeting or an hour discovery call or the first two sessions where we're going to really need 20, but we're going to give the first two. So we're going to scale up or down the size of our investment, always connected to what the outcome might be. And that's how we're going to, I'll say it a different way. It's the people who they don't know how to say no. They just do what's ever requested of them, or they just give everybody the same thing. They don't scale it. Those are the ones that can get burned or burn out.
Yeah, that's such a useful frame. I appreciate that. So we've been here with Mo Bunnell. He is the author of the new book, Give to Grow. You can obtain this for yourself online in many bookstores. And you can go to get the book and also get a bunch of free resources at give2grow.info right here, Mo. But let me ask you two last questions as we're closing out. One is if you can tell us just a little bit more about what people can get at this location in case they want to learn more. And then number two, for anybody who sort of wants to get started with this ideology, they say, okay, I'm on Team Mo. I love Give to Grow. For someone who is just sort of starting this process and wanting to get serious about long-term relationship building, what's a way that they could get started so that they can really get some momentum behind diving into the process?
Yeah, that sounds great. So give2grow.info, Dorie, if you could imagine the pressure an author feels to give away things when they write a book called Give to Grow, it's tremendous. So what we put at give2grow.info is a free training course, 6 videos from me, a couple dozen downloads that help you get started. And we made it work where you don't even have to buy the book. Like that's how
Wow.
we made it stand up on its
But
own.
do
Now,
it anyway, because that's a
yeah,
nice thing to do, people.
yeah, exactly. Like it's going to be better if you buy the book, but you don't have to have the book. So that's at givetogrowinfo. Tons of stuff, including what some clients like the most is a team launch guide, because that helps them buy the book for the team or not, but scale the learnings across the whole team. So that's the value that's at givetogrowinfo. Super easy to get. Practical way to get started. I love that as a close. What most people do with relationships is they sort of manage them in their head. And if we'd all agree that at some point in your career, once your expertise is very high, what's going to determine the arc of the rest of your career is what are your relationship building skills, your positive powers of authentic influence. And I mean that in a real authentic and positive way. Well, the best way to get started with that is simply write down a list of the names of human beings that are the most important for your future success. What we tend to do is have status quo bias. We tend to anchor on the people that we're around right now or most recently. We actually want to anchor on the people over the next couple of years who are the most important for our future success. Good rule of thumb is about 10 people is plenty, maybe 20. It's not 100. 10 or 20 names, and just writing those down on a scrap piece of paper actually is a plenty of a start. And we found most people can do that in about 90 seconds.
Wow, that is a really good start. And it's true. Most people have not taken the time to do that, but it seems like a really important first step. So Mo Bunnell, he is the author of Give to Grow. You can pick up your copy and get a bunch of free resources at givetogrow.info. Thank you all for tuning in here to join us. And Mo Bunnell, thanks for being with us.
Yes, thanks, Dorie. And get the long game too if you get Give to Grow, because they're a perfect pair.
Love it. Thanks. Take care, everyone.